Welcome back, everybody, to This Is My Bourbon podcast. I'm your host, Perry, with the very last episode of 2025. Had to squeeze in one more for you with one final review to... Can't believe we made it. It's episode 413. You're here. I'm here. It's a beautiful Friday night, December 26th, Boxing Day. I hope you celebrated appropriately with the new gloves that you got, as everybody does, of course. We all know how it works. I don't have to explain it to you. No, but seriously, I hope you had great holidays. I hope you enjoyed yourself and had some downtime with friends and family if you were able to. And if not, I hope that you are hanging in there, because I know it's not the same for everybody. But we're going to kick off this episode in the same way that we normally do, which is flying blind, where I try something I haven't had before or something that I haven't had in a while and have kind of forgotten about. And I have failed myself this year on Christmas by not having a pour of something that I would normally drink around the holidays. And that is the very first pick that I ever did for the podcast. It was with Curtis and Swan. It was with the Nashville Bourbon Society. It was at the New Riff Distillery. And it was called, or is called, A Riffmas Story. All sorts of little fun Easter eggs on the back. Just a fantastic, fun pick that I am so happy I was able to do. Fun fact, too, of the two New Riff picks that we have done for the show, they've both come out to the exact same proof. I don't know how that happens, but they both wound up at 106.4 proof. Couldn't tell you how. Could not tell you how that happened. I am also, unfortunately, down to the very last of my second bottle. So this is all I have left, if you're watching the video version. Roughly, 3 to 4 ounces. And I guess it's probably a good thing that I forgot about it. Forgot about having a pour of it on Christmas, so that I didn't, pour too much of it. But at the very least, I guess I am having some now. But I do want to, save it for as long as possible. So might be time to move it into a different bottle, I suppose. I would like to preserve this as best I can for as long as I can. Honestly, still one of my favorite picks. Still one of my favorite New Riff picks. And if you listen to last week's episode with Chad, you know that I tried some of their 6-year New Riff bourbons that they were working on picking for its bourbon night. And those were phenomenal as well. Honestly, some of the best 6-year bourbon I've ever had. And I kind of failed to mention this when we were recording last week, just how much I loved those bourbons, because I was so hyper focused on playing Chad's game of figuring out what it was that I was drinking. But at the same time, I'm making these mental notes of I can't believe that this is 6-year bourbon. I can't believe that It's as robust as it is. And the fact that New Riff is putting out whiskey that is that good is incredible, too. So, all right. Merry Riffmas to all. It's still just like strawberry cream savor. I can't get over how, even for a 4-year-old bourbon, it is so oaky. It's so good, man. I miss this era of of New Riff stuff. It's not to say that what they are doing right now is bad by any means, because it's definitely not. But these picks, when they first started like truly popping off, just phenomenal. Just a really, really fun time to be in the know and start enjoying what was happening. So I will go ahead and start talking about what I've been drinking recently, because it was an eventful Christmas week. And I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Jim Beam, because I started talking about it a little bit last week with Chad, and I didn't get the chance to talk about it as much, and I've talked it to death this week, because literally like every Christmas that I've gone to, somebody has asked me about it. So I'm going to take the time to actually talk about it right now. Well, in a minute, I suppose, because I do want to talk about what I've been drinking recently, and that is a bit extensive. We had our first Christmas, I suppose, on Tuesday, on Christmas Eve at my father-in-law's house. So I guess that would make it Festivus for those who celebrate. And brought a smattering of pours, a couple of rare characters. Brought the Jefferson's cast strength. Brought a Beam single barrel. What was the other pour that I brought? Shoot. Oh, I brought the Brook Hill was lumped in with the rare characters. Oh, it was a barrel craft spirits Mizunara finish bourbon, which was very good. I also had a couple of Miller High Lifes and a new to me beer that his neighbor Ben brought out while we were hanging out and chatting. And I've got to pull it up because I don't remember exactly what the name of it was. It was a foreign beer. Here we go. La Chouffe. Chouffe. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I'll put a picture of it up on screen for everybody who's watching the video version. And it was incredible. And then Wednesday, went to Lucy's grandmother's house, and then hung out at home afterwards as well. I brought some other bottles over there, but I that night, or I guess really that afternoon, we got home from her grandmother's, and I pull up to my house, and I noticed that my neighbors across the street, and I want to paint the picture for you too, for why this has happened. And the reason is because it is 62 degrees in Lexington. And I'm like, it was so warm, and you might have seen my post on social media, but I saw a guy driving around with his shirt off in his busted white Chevy pickup in Lexington on Christmas Eve. And I get home, and our neighbors across the street are starting their Christmas Eve off and clearly hanging out, drinking beer, and they've got their front door just wide open. And the husband just comes out and goes, "Woo!" And he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" And I was like, "Hey, man, good to see you." And Lucy gets home with the girls. We had to drive separate because I was working, and she went over earlier than I did. But she gets home with the girls, and I was like, I think I'm going to bring a bottle over to them, just, spread cheers. So I brought over the 2025 Barrel New Year, which I had only had like one pour out of since I had gotten it from Barrel somehow. And so I basically gave them a full bottle, and then some of Lucy's holiday drink mix that she makes up every year. And then we've got a semi-elderly couple next door to them as well that we've gotten to know. And he's a bourbon drinker too. And so I brought over a bottle of Calumet 15 that I was close to finishing. And I was like, let's have a pour together. And I left the rest of it with him. Yeah. And Christmas Day. Oh. More of that Beam single barrel. The Sealbox Christmas Rye. Cracked open a rare character rye, the SEG. And got the Stagg that I'm going to be reviewing on this episode too from Papa Ritter. So I'm very excited to talk about it and give you my thoughts because I have many and they're good ones. But I want to talk about this Jim Beam thing too, because there seems to be a lot of people who are concerned that, well, for a couple of reasons, and I the way that I have been introducing this to people is that I am of a couple of minds about this. The first thing is I'm not entirely convinced that this is a sign of something negative happening in the industry. And the reason that I say that is a point that Kyle Weipert actually made on my live stream last week when I was pointing to reporting that Janet Patton, who also kind of broke this story too for the Lexington Herald-Leader, when she reported that distilling of bourbon in the United States, well, the only place that bourbon can be distilled technically, was down 55 million proof gallons this year. And I was thinking about that and thinking about how Jim Beam is the of course most popular bourbon brand in the world. I'm not talking about whiskey brand. I'm talking about bourbon itself. We can argue back and forth about the distinction of Jack Daniel's versus Jim Beam and whether or not Jack Daniel's is a whiskey. I am specifically talking about Jim Beam as it is categorized as a bourbon brand, right? And I think it's pretty inarguable that they are the most popular bourbon brand in the world. Okay. So if we look at it from that perspective and we think about the fact that we are already down 55 million proof gallons of distilled liquid this year, that's not a great thing, but that's also leaning into the number side of things. So if we're going to lean into the number side of things, we have to also point to the fact that we hit a record of bourbon barrels being aged in the country this year. Let me look up this number because I can't remember what it is. Okay, so here is, again, Janet Patton, who is like my go-to source for bourbon news, at least for Kentucky, because she has broken like every important story as far as like distilleries closing, some of the like it's just, she is just fantastic. If you follow anybody who is an actual reporter in the industry, please follow Janet Patton. I want to get her on the show. I want to talk about her reporting sometime because she does great stuff. As sales slow, barrel inventory hits new record, what it means for Kentucky bourbon. This is her article from back in October of this year. The state had 16.1 million barrels of bourbon in warehouses, an all-time high. There's also another million or so spirits as well. That's as of January 1st, 2025, when the state's 127 licensed distilleries submitted numbers to the Kentucky Department of Revenue for tax purposes. So we have to look at this from from that perspective again, that yes, Beam is shuttering their distillery, but there are so many barrels of bourbon being aged right now in the state. Okay. So if Beam, who is saying right now that they are shuttering their distillery for the next year, and they are providing reasoning for it. They're saying that the visitor center is still going to be open. They're saying that they're still going to bottle on site. Of course, they can't shut down rick houses, of course. And this is just in Claremont, too. They are still going to have the Boston campus open. They're still going to have the Frankfurt campus open for distilling, too. So if they're cutting, and I don't know how many proof gallons per year Beam makes per site, but it is important to note that they still have plenty of stuff aging, and their other two sites are going to continue to age through 2026. So there's some more there are more things to focus on here as well. So you and this is probably stuff you already know, but I want to lay it out so we can talk about it in the most concise fashion as well. So Beam has said that they are shutting down the distillery so they can focus on renovations. Not a bad thing necessarily. They've also said that they're not going to fire anybody. That's also, of course, not a bad thing. Janet reports so far, Beam has not filed a layoffs notice with the state of Kentucky, according to the state's WARN Warren Act online database. It is unclear how many jobs might be impacted. That's not to say that jobs won't be impacted, but there's a chance that they might. As of 2024, Jim Beam has nearly 1,500 Kentucky employees, according to the company. So it's kind of like, it's somewhat promising that they are providing all of this good reasoning, saying that, we've got plans, but, this is where like the me being of two minds thing comes into play, right? So much of what has happened with the bourbon industry, especially in Kentucky, over the past, not even just year, but really 4 or 5 years, has been incredibly reactive to how the market has operated, right? So not to keep harping on this number that we saw earlier in the year, but seeing that we spent as much money as we did, and I'm going to pull this graphic back up, but that we spent in excess of $1 billion of what was projected to be sold on alcohol during the pandemic, and then it leveled back out in 2024 to what was supposed to have been spent, right? So March 2020, we were supposed to have been spending about $5.5 billion. We wound up spending $6.5 billion in 2024, basically the beginning of it. That number leveled back out to the expected, what looks to be about $6.1 billion per month. And here we are now with people essentially kind of losing their minds, because where did that extra $1 billion go? Well, people aren't staying at home spending as much money as they were on alcohol, because they have to go back to work and they have to not drink all the time, right? So where am I getting at with this? What I'm trying to say is the industry has freaked out thinking that people are spending less than they were, or less than they really thinking that they are spending less across the board, when really they're spending less than they were in comparison to an anomaly, right? And this whole well, we're going to invest all this money and it's going to lead to the continuation of growth, and we're going to have all of this incredible whiskey that's going to come out, and everybody is going to continue to love bourbon forever and ever, and alcohol in general forever and ever. And I think that what this signals, with the distillery shuttering for the next year, likely is less of a sign of them trying to combat something like these tariffs or the trade war, or declining alcohol sales, because yes, there are people who are very much moving away from drinking alcohol and moving on to alternatives like THC drinks, but the notion that people are spending less is really just not true. And again, I just showed you the numbers that prove that we are spending exactly, basically, what we are supposed to be spending on the trend line. And so all of this to say that it is possible that Beam is doing this just so they don't wind up sitting on so many barrels that they don't know what to do with them when in a few years' time, that product is ready to be bottled, and then shelves are full and we can't do anything with it other than let it sit. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but that's how I've been thinking about it. That's how I've been contemplating it. And that's the way I've been explaining it to people when they've asked me about it. So do with that information what you will. I hope it made sense. I think I've talked about it so much too over the past week that I can't it's all kind of becoming mush in my brain too, so I apologize. But either way, my recommendation is don't be as worried about it as you might be led to believe. Because Jim Beam's a big company. They've got products that they have already filed TTB labels for that they know are going to come out. it's going to be fine. I mean, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Does it suck? Does it look bad? Yeah. But at the end of the day, their other two sites are still distilling. They've got plenty in stock, I mean, if I would be more concerned once people started getting laid off. That would be the true worry, especially if they go, hey, we're going to furlough everybody for 6 weeks and then bring them back. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, nobody gets brought back. Like, that would be the biggest concern for me, because we've seen that happen with distilleries before. The big difference, though, is that those distilleries that's happened with this year were the new startups that didn't have the capital that Jim Beam does have. And so they couldn't afford to bring their employees back in the way that Jim Beam can, because Jim Beam is basically making money hand over fist with product that they already have out on the shelf. These other brands didn't have, they weren't making money. They were spending it to get an operation up and running. And Jim Beam's already a well-established facility, well-established company. I think they're going to be fine. So, bottom line, America, everything's fine. It's going to be okay. We'll get through it. Hope that made sense. All right, let's move on to the review. Patreon's getting bonus content at the end of the episode too. And I'm not telling anybody what it is just yet because I'm very excited for it. But last review of the year. It is New Year's Eve. Hope you guys are excited for this one. This is a late addition to considerations, but it is Stagg 25B, folks. 126.9 proof. And I wanted to point something out as well, because I can never remember what the actual proof is. Or sorry, not the proof, but the actual age. And according to Buffalo Trace's own website, Stagg, the artist formerly known as Stagg Jr., is 8 years old. And I genuinely couldn't remember if it was like, well, it's 7 and some 8 year in it, or it's 8 year flat. And I mean, of course, it's not like only 8 year bourbon in there. I get the feeling that it's 8 year bourbon with, 9, 10 on up from there. But my whole point is, it was just nice to go to their website and have a hard number listed on there. So MSRP, I believe, 65 to 70. I mean, that's what I kind of had in my brain. If you're lucky to find it for that, usually online or in most places, you're going to find it for, I don't know, 150, 200, something like that. But if you can find it at MSRP these days, I think it's easily a grab. But let's jump into this, shall we?
Looking to add a new shelved front to your reptile collection? Tortoisetown offers the absolute best selection of healthy, captive-bred tortoises for sale online. We ship directly to your home or business and offer every type of tortoise species, ranging from the tiniest of tortoises to the largest species. This includes everything from the Eastern Hermans and Russian tortoise to the medium-sized tortoises like redfoots and cherryheads. We also offer large tortoises like leopard tortoises, African sulcata tortoises, and one of the largest tortoises in the world, the Aldabra tortoise. Visit us online at www.tortoisetown.com.
It's one of the more just upfront, this is a Buffalo Trace product noses that you will find. I mean, brown sugar, that real grapey oakiness to it. Oh. And Stagg always has that like intense sort of, okay, this is bourbon feel to it. And as I said, I think I said earlier, this was my Christmas bottle from Papa Ritter, and my brother Dane got one as well. And I told him, you got to be careful with it. kind of messing with him a little bit. Sweet cherries. French vanilla. Corn pudding. Just a lovely nose. Cheers. Root beer candy. Almond butter. Walnuts. Bacon spices. That French vanilla again. This is just crazy. There are times when, and I talked about this when I was hanging out with Chad Watson and Kyle and Jesse Haddix. But there are times when I try a Buffalo Trace product, and it typically is when I try the barrel proof ones, and I remember why there is hype around them at all. And this is one of those times. Honestly, the finish is not super hot. This is one of the tamer finishes. Again, though, like cinnamon, black pepper, caramel, and oak. That like specific root beer candy note is on there too. It's unbelievably good. It's unbelievably good. And if you can get it at MSRP, my friends, I mean, this is one of those, like, it should be available constantly everywhere, but it's just got that hype, you know. It doesn't stay on shelves if it's on a shelf at all, because everybody knows what it is, and it'd be one of the first things to go. But this is still a typically a bourbon that would be kept in the back more than anything. Regardless, though, I'm a big fan. And you know what's funny, too? It all just works so well together. The finish might be the one part where I'm struggling a little bit with it. But even still, I'm not mad about it. I just would like for it to be a little bit more. I mean, overall, it just like I'm very pleased with it. Anyway, nose, palate, finish, and price. Each category is out of 5. Final score is out of 20. Nose is a 4. It is very solid. I don't even really know what would push it over the edge for me, honestly. But a 4 feels right. Palate is a 4.5. Without a doubt. I think if it were just a little bit more, I mean, it's getting very super nitpicky here, but if it were a bit more oily, just a little bit louder on the palate, it would bump it up to a 5. Finish, unfortunately, is again the weakest part, not by a whole lot, but it could be a little bit more extended, I think, go into some slightly different places. 3.5 there. And then, I mean, price is incredible. If you can find it at MSRP, again, I grade on MSRP, of course, because that's what they price it at. It's not their fault if you go to a store and it's not what it's set at. 8-year-old barrel-proof bourbon, this level of quality, this price, $65, $70. It's a 5. It's a 5. I mean, what are you gonna do, man? Like, it should be a 5. I feel like it should have. It should get its roses, should get its flowers. But anyway, is that a 7? Is that a 17? Is that what I gave it? 4, 4.5, 3.5? Yeah, 17 out of 20. I'm telling y'all, this is up there. This is one of the better ones this year. Where exactly it will go, I'm not sure yet. I still have a lot of work to do for my best of list, but it is going to be a good one for sure. Well, looks like we got one barrel ring this week, which you can participate in. It's a segment of the show that is run basically by your contributions. Send us a text or leave us a voicemail, 859-428-8253. Once again, 859-428-8253. That's the number you can call or text. And phone lines are always open. We'll check it out here on the show. You got a message from Tony, bag of donuts, and it's just a picture of a Riffmas Story bottle. He says, Merry Riffmas. There it is. Look at that. Thank you, Tony. I love it. Makes me happy. I was talking with Joe. Oh, geez. Video version got a super close-up of me with one of my presets for when I stream. Sorry about that. I was talking with Joseph Brazo the other day, and he opened his one bottle of Riffmas that he had, and he said that it didn't make it through the evening with his friends that he was drinking it with. I also don't know why my dogs are barking. I'm not talking about my feet. I'm talking about my dogs upstairs because they are barking at nothing. Well, let's move on to High Proof Hot Takes, segment of the show where I let you know about things that have been rubbing me the wrong way over the past week. It's been Christmas. I don't have any high proof hot takes. What am I talking about? It's been a good Christmas. I will have things to recommend to you though in the segment known as Tips and Bits, where I've been enjoying some stuff, watching, reading, listening to, playing, that I also want you to check out because I think it would enrich your life as it has mine. I brought it up briefly in the pregame chats this week, but I started finally playing Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch 2, and I've hit a couple of roadblocks so far. Been fine. I'm struggling, but it is a beautiful game. I like where the story has gone thus far. I think that it's very, I think it's very good. It is so much fun. It feels very familiar, very comfortable, but they are taking it places, man. They are going in some strange places with this game, and I love it. I love it. I can't wait to play it some more. As far as like other stuff, I mean, we've watched a slew of Christmas movies. I don't know if I've ever recommended this one, and I mean, it's not. By the time this episode comes out, it's Christmas Eve, so it's not like you're itching to watch Christmas movies or anything. But one of my favorite ones that I don't feel like anybody talks about that much, and I always try to watch it. Now, Eden has seen it for the first time, and it took some like pulling to get her there, but I think she actually really liked it. Was an animated, a computer animated Christmas movie called Arthur Christmas, where the title of Santa gets passed down through a family, and Arthur is the son of the current Santa, and his whole life is pretty much just his love of Christmas. And it's a really fun, really sweet movie, and I recommend it wholeheartedly if you haven't seen it yet. So anyway, kind of a shorter episode this week. I didn't really intend for that to happen, but even though I talked so long about Jim Beam, I feel like I crammed a lot in here. So thank you all so much for watching, for listening to every episode that has come out this year. It's been a big one. Lots of changes, lots of fluctuations in what I thought was going to happen and then didn't. Finishing out the year on I say lonely note, but that's not true because I don't feel alone without a co-host. But I do have somebody whom I have reached out to about being on the show, and we have talked about it. I want to have them on the show for a trial run to see if they're comfortable with it, and see how things shake out. But they are awesome. I don't know of anybody else that I think would fit in this role as well as they would. I will say that their time commitment is not necessarily a weekly thing, which is understandable because it was very fortunate that in the past I was able to have co-hosts who could sit down every week for an episode. But the good thing about that, not that it's a good thing that they can't be on the show every week, but I have at least developed the chops over the past 6 months to where I can carry episodes on my own. And I feel like when this person can't join for episodes, I can still make the show happen in a pretty effective environment. So that's my unofficial way of saying, that's my last minute drop of kind of semi-exclusive news, that there's somebody in the mix as the new co-host on Timbip. And we'll still have, like, semi-frequent guest co-hosts too, because I think that's always fun. Just bringing people into the space and letting them get a feel for what it is that I get to do. But yeah, I have enjoyed what this year has brought, even though it has been, in some ways, one of the more challenging ones. But I have loved 2025. And I think 2026 has a lot of potential for some awesome opportunities with the podcast. So thank you all so much for being here, no matter what. It means the world to me. The 8-year mark, 400 episodes reached in 2025. If you want more of this stuff and you want to support what it is that I do, while also getting bonus content and access to our Discord, you can head to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. You can learn about the tiers over there. I won't go into them too much because I've talked a lot. You can also follow on social media at mybourbonpod. I'm also pritter1792 on all social media platforms for the most part. You can find all of our, apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. You can send an email to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You can also, as I said earlier, send a barrel ring to 859-428-8253. We also have a P.O. Box that is wide the heck open for you to send stuff to. It's P.O. Box 22609, Lexington, Kentucky, 40522. And then last but not least, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app of choice, and we'll check it out, read it out here on the show. We appreciate everybody who does that, pushes us up in the algorithm. But you can also just tell your friends about the show, let them know that it's your favorite bourbon podcast, or one of your favorite bourbon podcasts. We're not trying to compete with anybody here. And that's the best way for people to find out about the show, is when it gets recommended to them by their friends. So let them know that you want them to listen to it. Maybe you can listen to it with them, too. I don't know. That seems weird. It seems kind of awkward. I don't know, man. Thank you all so much. Next week is my top 10 bourbons of the year. Or bourbons and rye. How it kind of goes. Thank you as always. See you real soon. Till next time, though, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.